Welcome to my virtual classroom.
Good day, teachers. Good day, everyone, and welcome to Ma'am Z's virtual classroom. Okay. Now, I want you to show your hands, and I'm going to say 10 statements. And if you think that you are that person being described, then you're going to put one finger down. Okay. For example, put a finger down if you are a Filipino. Now, let's begin. First, put a finger down if your parents got separated. Put a finger down if you belong to a low socioeconomic status. Put a finger down if you have poor eyesight. Put a finger down if you have no Wi Fi access at home. Put a finger down if you are a working student. Put a finger down if you are studying because you have a scholarship. Put a finger down if you are physically abused. Put a finger down if you have a handicapping situation. Put a finger down if you never had a birthday party. And put a finger down if you have no laptop. Okay, so let's now count our scores. Who among you got a perfect 10? How about an 8? How about a 5? Now, let me just tell you, what if those scores are actually your scores in the quiz 1 in my subject? You will hate me, right? Yes, definitely. I will hate myself too. Well, good thing, hindi yun totoo. This is not your grade for your quiz 1, but it will present to us all that we have different backgrounds. That some will bring a face sa loob ng classroom na nagaling siya sa isang 8. Minsan nasa 10 siya. Minsan when it comes to your attitude, when it comes to your motivation na pumasok sa school, minsan ang taas naman. Minsan hindi naman. Now, it presents that we all are different individuals. It presents that we have different religious backgrounds, affiliations, we have different understandings about life, we have different abilities, and that means we are all diverse. And I think that is the beauty of life, that we are not born na pare-pareho. Now, I'm also not saying that all statements given earlier ay merong positivity at may negativity. It doesn't mean na when you have a broken family, negative agad siya. It's not like that. Because other individuals ay nagkakaroon ng stronger heart to face more trials in their lives because of the past that they've been through. And I am speaking for myself. Now, we also have individuals na mababa naman ang socioeconomic status when they were born, pero ang taas ng motivation nila to succeed in life. And that means we really have different backgrounds, pero it's really up to us kung paano natin titingnan ng life. Now, for this day, makikita natin kung ano ba ang differences ng perspectives, most especially when it comes to life and disability. Now, let me present to you Loden's diversity wheel. Now, this is the original wheel. It has two spheres. The first sphere is what you call as the inner embedded sphere, and the concepts outside are the outer sphere. So ano bang difference ng dalawa? So the inner embedded sphere, such as the age, gender, physical ability, race, ethnicity, and sexual orientation, are some things that we have no control over. So that means we are born that way. Now, how about the outer sphere? Now, we have here the income, your education, your thinking style, your values, personal appearance, marital status, so on and so forth. Now, these aspects on the outer sphere explains that there are certain traits that we have control over, and these may or may not change over time. Now, imagine if you have a disability. Now, disability, therefore, is an inner or belonging to an inner embedded sphere. That means, most likely, um, wala siyang control over this certain condition. An example to this is intellectual disability. The same with people with autism. And the same with people na merong physical handicapping situation. Okay? Now, this diversity wheel presents that we have varied characteristics. Some we can control and some we can't. Now, what are the objectives of the day? One is to demonstrate an in-depth understanding of concepts related to inclusive and special education. And second, define, compare, and contrast the two models of disability. Now, let's begin with understanding the term disability. Now, disability could be viewed on this picture. Do you think the person on wheelchair is actually welcome to get in the building? Now, it is an obvious no. Now, what is the reason behind? There are two reasons. One, it is because the person in wheelchair cannot probably stand and climb up the stairs. And second, it is because the stairs is not accessible for persons with disability. Now, if your initial answer is the first one, and you are looking at disability in the medical field, and two, if your answer is the person cannot get in because of accessibility issue, then you are looking at the social model of disability. Now, before I move on to discussing the different models of disability, let me just ask you, ano ang nararamdaman ninyo whenever you see a person na merong disability? Pakilista sa piece of paper. Pwede nyo ring i-write sa inyong cellphone if you want to. Ano naman yung ginagawa ninyo kapag nakakakita kayo na person with disability, say sa mall, sa kalye? What do you usually do? How do you look at them? Literally, how do you look at them? Do you even look at them? Please list it down. Third question, what are your thoughts na nagra-run? Walang judgment dito. Kapag nakakakita kayo ng person with disability. Now, please list them down. Now, the medical model sees disability as an individual problem. Now, the person cannot enter or cannot access the building because he has the handicapping situation. Now, those people with disabilities in the medical model are those who cannot walk, who cannot hear, who cannot see, and those who cannot understand some areas. Now, the medical model of disability is also called as a personal tragedy model. It is because this model regards the difficulties that people experience, specifically those people with disabilities experience, as caused by the way na na-shape ang kanilang bodies at kanilang brain. Anong implication nun? Kung nakikita natin ang person with disability ay hindi nakakakita, ano kailangan natin gawin? Now, we have to recommend specialists, rehabilitations, and transition programs, so on and so forth, for that person para makakita. The same with people with handicapping situations. If this person cannot walk, kagaya nung picture kanina, kung hindi niya kayang makapasok or maka-access doon sa building, aba kailangan niya ng physical therapy. Kailangan niya ng mga ways para makapasok at maka-access ito sa building. And therefore, this medical model of disability sees person with disability as the problem that needs to be fixed. Kung pakibasa yung mga lista nyo kanina, common answer to that is one, nakakaawa. Another one, anong ginagawa? Binibigyan agad ng limos. Third, hindi na lang tinitignan. However, yung iba naman, mas tinitignan pa nila. So ito halos ay nag-ugat sa thinking na ang disability ay tragedy ng isang person. So paano naman tinitignan ng medical model or dinidefine ng medical model ang terminology such as disability, impairment, and handicap? So let me show you this slide. According to the World Health Organization, disability is any restriction or lack of resulting from an impairment of ability to perform any activity in the manner or within the range considered normal for a human being. Now, meron lamang disability kung merong impairment. That would be the definition coming from the World Health Organization. Now, ano naman ang impairment? Well, again, according from the WHO, impairment is any loss or abnormality of psychological, physiological, or anatomical function. Kaya ang examples ng impairment ay physical impairment, kasi meron ka, for example, loss ng leg or ng arm. Then, another example would be hearing and the visual impairment. So, hindi naman nawala yung mata, hindi naman nawala yung tenga, but there is a certain abnormality of physiological or anatomical structure in those systems. Kaya siya tinawag na impairment. So, once again, you have a disability because you have impairment. That is according to the World Health Organization. Now, how does the World Health Organization define handicap? Handicap is a disadvantage for a given individual resulting from an impairment or disability that prevents the fulfillment of a role that is normal depending on age, sex, social, and cultural factors for that individual. Ibig sabihin, disadvantage na na-experience ng person with disability or person with impairment. Yun ang handicap. For example, hindi ka makaakyat sa stairs. That is a handicapping situation. When you're handicapped from climbing the stairs, you cannot see, while some of your classmates can see the PowerPoint presentation clearly, then that is a handicapping situation. So your inability to see the PowerPoint presentation is what you call as the handicap. Is it possible for people in wheelchair to play basketball? Do you think they are handicapped from playing basketball? The answer is no. So do you think they are handicapped from feeding themselves? The answer is no. Do you think they are handicapped from having an employment? The answer is no. Therefore, a handicap is whatever disadvantage that the person with disability or impairment will experience dahil sa kanilang disability. Now, if you don't have any disadvantage na nararamdaman, even if you have this disability, then therefore, wala kang handicapping situation. So, anong implications ng medical model of disability? Policymakers might create some services na segregated for them. Nagkakaroon ng segregated schools, hospitals, certain rehabilitation centers that are only targeting people with disabilities. In the long run, people with disabilities themselves could feel or could have what we call as internalized oppression. So they would feel na hindi nila kayang gawin ng mga things na to, that they would always solicit support, funding, money from people na who have able bodies. Dito rin ang galing yung mga charity models, so on and so forth. Now, because of that internalized oppression, people with disabilities would think na hindi sila pang mainstream, hindi sila pwedeng nakikihalubilo sa regular people. Now, the social model of disability explains that the denial of opportunities, the restriction of choice, and self-determination and lack of control over the support system in their lives is actually the reason for their disabilities. Now, therefore, it is the society that disables people. Dahil dinedesign nila ang lahat ng things para lamang sa regular na people. For instance, if you're going to enter a mall, hindi lahat ng mall ay mayroong ramps. Hindi lahat ng malls ay mayroong special parking space. Even if with the policy that we have in our country, hindi lahat ay mayroong designated areas for people with disabilities. If you have a wheelchair, do you think makakapasok ang isang estudyante sa isang classroom that is only made for regular people? Kailangan nila ng mas wide na door, wider desk, and other things. So the problem here, according to the social model of disability, is the access that the society is not giving them. And actually, the social model of disability is created by people with disabilities themselves. So, if the medical model is saying na ang person with disability is the reason kung bakit sila may disability, sa social model, hindi naman ganon. Therefore, buburahin natin ang arrow papasok. There. So, balik tayo sa picture kanina. In the social model of disability, you will now see that the stairs is the actual reason kung bakit sila may disability. Now, social model of disability is understood as an unequal relationship within a society in which the needs of people with impairments are often given little or no consideration at all. PWDs are disabled by the fact that they are excluded from participation within the mainstream of society as a result of physical, organizational, and attitudinal barriers. These are inaccessible transport, lack of support, poverty, lack of accessible information, negative perceptions, too few sign language interpreters, lack of understanding from others, and poorly designed buildings. Now, according to the Union of the Physically Impaired Against Segregation, the definition of disability is the disadvantage or restriction of activity caused by a contemporary social organization which takes little or no account of people who have physical impairments and thus excludes them from participation in the mainstream of social activities. Now, ano naman ang possible na implications ng social model of disability? We have to give them certain employment na pwede silang makapasok dito. And we already have some for people na nasa deaf community dito sa Philippines na meron na silang diretso na job. But we have to create more opportunities for people with disabilities of other conditions. Let me show you a chart or a matrix that explains both model. Now, if the medical model sees the individual as a problem, the social model, ang nakikita nila is that the barriers are created by the society. For the medical model, if the individual needs to change, the social model is stating that the society actually needs to change. For the medical model, the people with disabilities are the victim, the client, which have no responsibilities over themselves. They are disempowered. For the social model, they have choice, they have independence, they have control. Now, to sum it all up, we discussed the major models of disability. One is the medical model, and the other one is the social model. Now, medical model sees the person with disabilities, the problem, to be solved. While in the social model, it sees the society as giving barriers to people with disabilities, kaya nagkakaroon sila ng inaccessibility and problems whenever they encounter regular people. Now, in my personal standpoint, medical model is not completely wrong. Well, the medical model kasi ay nabuo nung certain era in which they believe that if there are certain conditions, kailangan gumaling ito. Dito rin nanggaling yung terminologies nating mga Pinoy that we believe that all of the conditions are just sakit na pwedeng gumaling. When in fact, hindi po. Well, in this course, the certain conditions that we're going to talk about are forever conditions, such as intellectual disability, learning disability, and so on, which are already embedded in the cells of the human body. Therefore, hindi natin gagamitin ng term na sakit at gagamitin natin ang terminology na condition. Now, the social model is not completely right. Kasi we still need a certain diagnosis to understand the condition, the entire condition of the person with disability. And that is the recommendation ng World Report on Disability in Chapter 1, and that if you're my student, you know what I'm talking about, that meron tayong tinatawag na psychosocial model. This is the view in which sasamahin natin ang diagnosis plus the removal of certain barriers in the society in which a person with disability might experience as that person mingles with the regular people. So that will be for the medical and the social model. And so I hope that you learned a lot with such a short explanation of certain topics. But of course, I expect that my students in this course have read the World Report on Disability Chapter 1 and have viewed the videos on social model and the medical model of disability. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And please be, or let's all be a blessing to one another.